Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. I'm the Executive Director of Churches for Middle East Peace. Today is Friday, December 15th, and today is day 70 since the Hamas attacks on South Israel, and since Israel began its collective punishment campaign on the civilians of Gaza and its bombing campaign. This morning, I had a meeting with a Catholic bishop from Jerusalem, and we were talking about what reality is like for the Christians remaining in Gaza. At the beginning of all of this, on October 7th, there were only about 1,000 Christians in Gaza. We know that at least more than 20 were killed, 18 of whom were killed in the bombing of the St. Porphyrius Church. Several others have died not being able to get to hospitals because of the ground incursion in Israel's attempts and war against Hamas, which has had such devastating effect on civilians. And this bishop was talking to me about the families that are currently living and taking refuge in the Latin Catholic Church in Gaza. He said it's like they're living like prisoners. They can't leave because of the ground incursion that is now in South Gaza. He said they fear bombardment. They have very little food and water. The water that they're getting is from a well, and there's a generator that pumps the well, and the generator is almost out of gas. And he said that the well is providing water for more than 600 people. And he said it's almost like a miracle that the well is continuing to produce enough water to be able to provide for all of the people who are taking shelter there. He said that they have very little food, that there have been some shipments that have been able to reach the church and reach the refugees who are staying there. One of the shipments has come from the Jordanians. The Jordanian hospital is not all that far away, but some of the people in the church who've needed medical care have not been able to get to the hospital because the Israeli military is present and their way is blocked. We do know that some of the shipments of food have not been able to make it to the church because people are so hungry that when there are shipments along the way, that he said food parcels and food that's been on the back of trucks has been taken. And so at least one of the shipments has not made it because it has passed by people who were hungry along the way, who took the shipments and who confiscated the supplies before it could even reach the church. That's how desperate people in Gaza are. But he also told stories about how there's hope and how people there in Gaza, some people have had access to certain resources, and they've been sharing them with others. And there are stories of generosity and stories of kindness and stories of people who are sharing what very little they have with others. And so we talked about what's it mean to pray for peace? What's it mean to seek to hold on to hope in the midst of this devastating crisis that's been going on for 70 days? In the midst of news that hostages continue to be held, we just heard today that 3 hostages were actually killed by Israeli forces, not on purpose, of course. And so the news continues to be devastating. The bombing campaigns continue, and yet we will continue to call for a ceasefire, and we will continue to work toward peace. I wanted to give just a few updates today. On Thursday, yesterday is today Thursday? Yes, that was yesterday. A senior Hamas official, Musa Abu Marzouk, suggested that Hamas would or could recognize Israel following the Palestinian Liberation Organization's official stance. This was reported by Al Monitor. He did justify the October 7th attack, saying it achieved many goals for Gaza and prominence for the Palestinian cause. And he denied it as mere lies, the testimony and evidence of sexual violence committed by Hamas. We've talked about that in past days and certainly condemn all sexual violence and all violence against civilians. The Palestinian Authority said that they will look to ultimately have a role in Gaza, and that's something that the United States is talking with them about. According to a senior U.S. official, these comments came as the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is scheduled to meet with Palestinian President Abbas in Ramallah today. We've not heard a readout on that meeting as of yet. The US President, Joe Biden and Sullivan discussed scaling back Israel's high-density operations in Gaza. They had a conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu about that. This was reported by Reuters and a senior US official. Sullivan told Israel's Channel 12 that he had constructive talks with Netanyahu about Israel shifting to a more precise and targeted phase of operations, but they did not give details for a timeline. The New York Times reported that the US is pushing for this shift to happen by the new year. Biden also has said that he wants Israel to, quote, be more focused on how to save civilian lives, end quote. He said that meant to not stop after Hamas, that Israel should not stop going after Hamas, but that they must be more careful. A White House spokesperson said it wanted Israel's war in Gaza to end as soon as possible, but that the US was not dictating a timeline to Israel. Israel has said that they do not have anticipation of slowing down despite international pressure. I've not heard a response from Israel since these recent remarks from the US government. We did get a note directly from Gaza, and it's been reported in the news that all communication and internet services have been completely cut off in Gaza as of yesterday, according to Palestinian telecommunication companies. And then we also heard that Israeli military reported that soldiers are facing disciplinary action after violating a code of conduct during an operational activity near a mosque in Jenin in the West Bank, where soldiers were seen on videos singing Hanukkah songs and mocking the Islamic call to prayer over a loudspeaker in the mosque during a raid. The incident came during 3 days of raids in the occupied West Bank, in which Israeli troops killed 12 Palestinians, including one youth that was shot dead at a hospital, according to Palestinian officials. The Palestinian Football Association said it has documented the killing of 85 Palestinian athletes, including 55 football players and 30 players in other sports since the start of the war. And the association said in a report that Israeli forces have targeted Palestinian athletes and sports facilities, especially football players, club presidents, administrators, referees, and others. That's according to WAFA. The death toll as of today is that at least 18,787 Palestinians have been killed and more than 50,000 wounded in Israeli airstrikes since October 7th, according to the Gaza Hamas-run health ministry. Monday, December 18th will be a day of action globally calling for a ceasefire, and we would encourage you to engage and to continue to call for a ceasefire, to an end to the war, a return of the hostages, immediate and adequate humanitarian assistance. If you'd like resources about that, please go to our website at www.cmep.org.